Sally Baucke, also known as Funny Gal Sal on the internet, has been a professional comedian and keynote speaker for almost 20 years. She's a comedian for Aspire Women's Events, a sponsored artist for Compassion International. She's also a featured speaker for Hearts 2.0, Ignite the Family Ministries, and a past keynote speaker for corporate giant Procter & Gamble, just to name a few highlights. She's been a frequent guest on Cincinnati news station, on Fox and WCPO, promoting upcoming events and her humorous autobiographical book, What Didn't Kill Me Made Me Funny. Every Mother's Day, Dr. Dobson's Family Talk Radio airs her CD called Mother Superiors. Let's talk to the amazing Funny Gal Sal, Sally Baucke, today on Live with Tricia.
Welcome to Season 2, Laugh Your Past Off. Live with Tricia is an innovative platform that's been recorded before a live online studio audience. As a faith-based award-winning actor, director, author, and entrepreneur, Tricia Harmon inspires, listens, and joins the larger discussion. Get ready to engage for the next 30-ish minutes in innovative and authentic conversation with award-winning and renowned comedians from around the country, offering inspirational perspective and purpose as together we learn how to laugh our past off.
Sally, welcome. It is so good to have you.
Thank you for having me. I think this is so cool, the technology that we can talk and look at each other and people can hear us. It's like going to lunch with 1,000 people.
I know. And thank God for our husbands who kind of help get us all set up with the sound and all of that too. So thank you, Craig, Sally's husband, and my husband, Scott. So you are in Cincinnati, Ohio right now, and you have this regal room. I just love it. We almost have like this royal princess and noble pearl, like we sent the memo to each other. I love it. But yours is very, very deliberate, just like mine is for the noble pearl side and the royalty. You have royalty in your genes as well, don't you? And you like to wear it proudly.
I do. In fact, Tricia, would you mind if I went ahead and, put on?
I think you should put on the ensembles. Get the accessories out, girl.
So I have a collection, but this is the one I'll choose for right now. Yeah.
Look at that.
You kind of have put that bad girl up there,
And in honor of you, I put my pearls on.
I love that. I should have sent you a tiara. So
I need a tiara, and we both have to wave so we can do, because you know what, guys? We're going to talk about this, and it's going to get really close to home, but we're going to talk about how we are royalty, and not to be snobby and stuck up, but how we are spiritually royal and what God says about that and what led to Sally coming to that. But right now, let's just share a little bit about you, Sally. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Chicago. My dad was a pilot for United Airlines. He had previously been in the military. He was an Air Force captain. I'm very proud of that heritage and his service. And when he left the military, we went to Chicago, and he flew for United Airlines out of O'Hare. So we lived there, and I grew up there, and I really loved Chicago. It was great. I was very into the arts and theater, and not sports, but the other, so many things. I took piano and flute and voice and dance and all that. And so we had access to great arts and theater in Chicago. So I loved growing up there.
How long did you go there? Live there?
I was there till I went to college, and basically grew up there. And so I went to college at the University of Tulsa, which was it seemed like it was a huge culture shock for me to go from Chicago to Oklahoma.
Oh.
Yeah, it was almost paralyzing for me because I was just not used to that, and I had traveled but never to Oklahoma. But it was actually a really wonderful experience, and I got a degree in nursing at the University of Tulsa, and it was and I believe still is a very progressive nursing school. It was very integrative and ahead of its time, and I am really thankful I went there. And so, yeah, I've been a registered nurse also for 35 years. That's just part of who I am.
Now, your husband's name is Craig, and you have a family. Tell us a little bit about your kiddos.
Well, I have 3 grown boys now. It's so hard to believe. I have a 30-year-old. It just doesn't seem real when they get that 3,
Me
you
too.
know?
I know. I don't know how they got old and we didn't. That's
Right? Like,
genius.
the other day, Spencer, my oldest, said, "Hey, Mom, we were looking at some pictures." He goes, "That 90s were kind of hard on you." He goes, "You look way better now." And I said, "I think it's because I'm sleeping this decade. You're gone." And he has a younger brother, Cooper, who's 28, and he lives in Baltimore. And I have a 24-year-old son, Camden, too, who's in graduate school for psychology. And he is engaged to be married next year. Spencer has been married for 5 years and has a 1-year-old son.
Oh, you're a grandma, too. Oh.
I'm a grandma, and he's so cute. I don't have a picture right up here because that would distract everything. It would be real conversation. He's that cute, Tricia. I mean, you could.
Well, any 1-year-old, yeah, that's like the cutest right there because they really are coming into their own. And your grandbaby's name is
Nolan.
Yeah. That's beautiful. So now you live in Cincinnati, Ohio. What brought you to Cincinnati?
Well, my husband got a job with General Electric Aviation Aircraft. He's a rocket scientist, kind of engineering person. Yeah, so that's, common sense, not so much, but totally brilliant on the math side of things. And we came here just for a challenge, to be honest. And at the time, my parents still live in Chicago, so it was a little closer for us, for them to see the grandkids. Then they retired back to North Carolina, but we ended up staying here, loving it. It's a great place to raise your children. They have major sports teams. They have great education. We really like it. It's a great city. So
your folks are still alive and
they are. I moved them back here about 6 years ago so I could take care of them. They're, in their 80s now. They need a lot of help, and so happy to
too. I'm not taking care of them. They still are doing very, very well, but they're in their 80s, and my husband's parents are in their 80s, and it's a totally different paradigm shift, isn't it? What was it like growing up with your family? Are you a single child? Where are you in your family dynamics?
So I have one sister, and she is 3 years older than me, and it was just the 2 of us. And we weren't particularly a close family. I don't think my father was really close with his siblings or his parents. My mom was an only child, and so it was just my sister and I. We were interested in very different things, and just really didn't, we just didn't do a lot as a family. And I always kind of am sad about that, because we did go on some good vacations and we did eat dinner together. And the biggest memory I have, Tricia, is that as a family, without fail, on Saturday night, we would sit down with popcorn and Tab, if you can remember Tab,
my mom drank it all the time until I think Diet Pepsi, but it was like Fresca Tab.
It was horrible. But we would sit down with our air popcorn, and we'd all sit around the TV, and we would watch the Mary Tyler Moore, Bob Newhart, Carol Burnett lineup. My mom just loved Mary Tyler Moore. I particularly loved Carol Burnett, and of course Bob Newhart. Just who didn't he crack up? He was a genius, right?
Tim.
Oh gosh, Tim Conway, Harvey Korman, a little bit, and I just loved them, and I loved all the sketches that Carol Burnett did with everybody, and when they cracked up, it cracked me up. But what I loved was that was the time we were all together, and
we're laughing.
We were laughing. And it was just a really...
I was thinking Vicki Lawrence,
Oh, Mama, and then, Mrs. Hawaiian, I just love Mrs. And I used to do my invitations all the time, and it used to drive my parents crazy, because I would always do my imitation of them. And so, it was just, and even Georgette, she was just space cadet. Sorry, I'm a little full time, I can't really do it, but I just found that to be a really special time because we were laughing. And I really think, looking back, that's when my love of comedy.
Yeah, it just makes sense, I bet, because it was a happy place. It was
Yeah.
something that you drew from. That is beautiful. So did you grow up in a Christian home, or what was your faith like when you were growing up?
We went to church. We went to a Lutheran church in Chicago. We were always at church. My mom was the organist. My dad was an elder. I sang in the junior choir, and then later, sang solos and was in the adult choir. So we were at church all the time. As Lutherans know, we're there for Advent. We're there for Lent. We're there for, on New Year's Day. We're there on, St. Patty's Day. That's the only one I think we're not there. But so we were there a lot. I attended it was like a girls' club kind of thing where it was right down the street from our church. It was at a place called Literature Crusades, which is now called International Crusades in Chicago. And I was invited to a girls' Bible study when I was 8 years old there. And it was at that I really first comprehended the love of God and the love of Jesus, and that there was a Savior who loved me. And you know what? I was hook, line, and sinker gone the first time I heard that. And I, prayed to receive Christ, and I just have been in love with God ever since, really.
So you became a nurse, and you did most of your practice in Oklahoma?
Till I moved here. And then I worked also, I did critical care, recovery room. I worked some heart catheterization, and I worked basically all what I think of as the hard stuff at the beginning. Yeah. And I'm a med surg nurse. And then when we moved here, I had my second child, and then it was just too demanding to be at the hospital. And, there's a lot of people that don't make it. And that was just draining to come home then. I know women do it all the time. Nurses in general, men and women, take care of people and go home and take care of their families. It just seemed like a lot for me because I did not have any family in town to ever spell me off.
That's where I was going with. Yeah, because now you've moved away and you're kind of on your own, new, wife. And because you got married in Tulsa?
Yep. Yep, I did. And so Craig, when he finished his graduate degree in Tulsa at the university, then we moved to Cincinnati. He got a job with General Electric in their aircraft engines. And so I did a little bit of critical care work, but then ended up working at a pediatric office for 10 years, which I loved. It was a completely different skill set, but I had children, small children, and then I worked 2 evenings a week and every other weekend. And it was just enough to keep me active and keep learning, but have hands-on patient care and but not be as drained and not quite as full-time. So
yeah, I bet you were a hoot as a pediatric caregiver. That just professional, relating to kids. You have that personality, I can already tell. So let me kind of step back because I got ahead of myself a little bit. But tell me a little bit about, you had that moment, that family moment on the weekend with your family, air popcorn and tab, and what was general life like? Because with your dad being in the military, what was your relationship with your parents?
He was pretty strict. And I would say, I'm not going to call him an absent parent, but he was emotionally an absent parent. I mean, I always want to be kind to my parents. I still feel like I need to respect and honor them. And I think every parent does the best they can. Yeah. That's really how I fall out on that. Now that I have raised 3 boys, I think every parent does the best they can with what they know how at the time they do that. And so I always want to clarify and say I still do take care of my parents. I always will. And I am the only sibling that does that. And I think that there was a lot of pain growing up. There was a lot of unfulfilled emotional needs. And it wasn't like we weren't fed. I mean, we were fed and taken to school. And my mom, God love her, she drove me to every, event that I wanted to be, I had to beg my dad to come to a few things. He was just not interested in the whirly twirly girl that I was, and silly. And I just even remember sometimes with my friends, you know how little girls, we laugh and cackle, and it was like 10 degrees below zero in Chicago, and he made my friends and I go outside. I'm like, we can't really go out there without freezing. So we just went to one of their houses and just, you know, begged to come in, and we went and could cackle at their house. But I had a lot of friends. I always had a lot of friends, and that was a little bit more like my family, to be honest. So
yeah. Having friends over was not something I did either. I was very involved in a lot of school activities. I played sports. You know, my two sports were basketball and softball, and then I was in musicals and whatnot. But it is interesting that I did not have a lot of friends at the house either. But when I'd go over to my girlfriend's house who lived around the lake from us, we'd get up at midnight, go down to the park and throw on improv musicals down at the beach and just have a blast, you know. So as far as where that led you in your emotional and your own identity, where would you say that left you? Because, you know, every little girl wants, you know, their daddy's attention and that identity of being wanted and accepted and beloved and cuddled and all, you know, just all those emotional needs that we have as little girls. Where did that leave you when you were kind of seeking it, but it wasn't being fulfilled in the way that you had hoped?
well, yes, I agree. I think every little girl would love that. And, you know, some little girls lose their fathers and they don't even have a father figure to have that. But I did have a father that was home a lot of the time and was just uninterested. And I do believe loved me and still loves me, but I didn't know how, or does not still know how exactly how to show that or say that. So it left me, to be honest, in a place of really wanting to be a daddy's girl. Because I mean, I remember watching the Brady Bunch growing up, and I'll date myself. I remember probably the original Little House on the Prairie, not when they were in reruns, but when they were, you know, first coming out.
Yeah.
And the Waltons and those shows where the father would, you know, of course, with Little House on the Prairie, Michael Landon, he'd pull Half Pint up to his lap, and Laura would just snuggle into him, and he had a nickname for her. I always wanted to have a nickname like Half Pint. I thought that was the sweetest. And my nickname was like Smart Aleck and Wild Child. My dad would call me things, but they weren't that endearing kind of thing. And he was kind of hard on me. It just didn't ended up with a feeling, whether he meant it or not. Mm-hmm. I ended up with a feeling that I was just not enough. My grades weren't high enough. My looks weren't pretty enough. I was, you know, even some things he would even say to that effect. And there was a lot of judging and a lot of critical things. And it just left me wanting. It left me feeling like I could never attain that love of a father. And to be honest, I think many of us, Tricia, transfer our feelings towards our earthly father. Men and women, I think, do this. I mean, towards the heavenly father, you know, towards God. This is how we see God. Is he uninterested? Does he think we're silly? Does he think we're fluffy?
Too busy?
Wait, what?
Is he too busy?
Oh, yeah. Is he too busy? Does he think I'm just silly? Is he have other people he's more concerned about? Or is he just indifferent? Or how strict is he? And I think it's hard. I know my mom was a daddy's girl with her father. And I think my dad just really tried hard to make my sister and I not be like that. And he was successful in that. And I think he regrets that. I know he regrets that to this day. I just don't think he knew how to do it differently.
Yeah, it is interesting how I have a really, really good relationship with my mom and dad both now. Back in my childhood, I wanted that attention and affection from my dad. And my sister, who's a little younger than I am, 2.5 years younger, seemed to be the daddy's girl because she was the baby of the family. And I was the middle child. And so I was, kind of like, I don't know if I was called the wild child, but I was definitely was called the rebellious one. and my mom and I were volatile at times where, we would have major clashes, major conflicts that were resolved through unhealthy means. And it wasn't until I ended up what I call trading in my religion for a relationship with Jesus Christ. And then I realized how my sin had affected my relationship with my parents. And I went back and I actually went to my mom and dad in humility and brokenness and acknowledged how rebellious, defiant, stubborn, dishonoring, disobedient I was. And there was something so amazing that God did in bringing brokenness in all of us, and then healing and restoration and the reconciliation. And so, I just want to share this with you viewers and listeners that it's never too late this side of glory to take that opportunity to really value. And like you said, Sally, we are called to honor our parents regardless of age, regardless of their, our experience. We are called to honor, and it's not the personality, we're called to honor the position, because they have been given to us as protectors, as providers, and as ones who can help navigate us through life. And there's so many things that if we really thought about it long enough, we could begin a huge grateful list. And like you said, some children have never even known their parent or parents. And so, or their parents are gone now and they're saying, I don't know how to recapture that. I never got that. And even in the loss of parents, you can have a vertical respect, a vertical honor of your parent, and begin showing gratefulness as you grow in the Lord, realizing that they gave you life, and God has a plan for your life, and He didn't mean it to destroy you, but to prepare you for what He has planned for your purpose and call in life. And it might not look like every other child in class or every other coworker or every other neighbor. It's a personal relationship with Him that He calls you into, irregardless of what that looked like with your parents. And I love how you said we get that identity of our Abba Daddy through our dads, and that's a real challenge to dads, for number one. But the other thing is that it's faulty comparison, because nobody
exactly. And I taught a lot of great things, Tricia. I learned a really good work ethic. My parents are both hard workers. They are great.
Mine too.
They taught me how to be on time. I mean, if I'm even on time, I feel late. They taught me, pay your bills on time, be honest, tell the truth. They taught me a lot of great things. They taught me a lot of biblical truths. And we did go to church. We would just always go to church. And the Bible was, a respected book in our home, and they weren't necessarily reading it for themselves for personal growth at that time. And I think some of that is generational. I think some of that was things that they learned. And I was interested in that, and they supported that. They did support my doing that. So there were so many gifts that they gave me. They really insisted that I get great education. They insisted that I was able to pursue a lot of my musical and creative activities. And I appreciated that. So there's so many things that I have to take away. Like any relationship, I think we have to lower expectation or drop them altogether. And then as an adult, I have the responsibility to look at my parents as how they are as people, and not just what I did or didn't get from them, but how I can now serve them as I grow older. And
beautiful. And you are honoring them by, caring for them too. And that's all a mindset. That starts with taking every thought captive. And I just want to segue, because I can't wait to hear how you went from nursing into comedy and how that whole process happened. But first, I want to just take a moment here and take a little break, because what we're talking about is really a mindset revolution. And I personally wrote a book to help me get through my never in a million years would you have thunk moments when I realized that I was not thinking rightly. I was thinking and believing lies about myself and about others and about the circumstances around me. And so I want to just offer this book because it's now available on Amazon.com. It's called Sand to Pearls: Transforming the Sabotaging and Negative Dialogue Stuck Between Your Ears. This is a part 1 of a 3-part study guide personal development book. It will inspire you with biblical principles, plus equip you to take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ in under a minute. The innovative method will help you never forget how to navigate and transform every thought. You know, it's interesting that when you go through this, you will experience a whole new level of clarity, renewed mindset. It will offer you truth and sustained love, joy, peace, and success in your own life like never before. So hop on over to Amazon.com, look for Sand to Pearls: Transforming the Sabotaging and Negative Dialogue Stuck Between Your Ears by Tricia Harmon. All righty, well, now we get down to the fun pivots, because I mean, I think you already said there was a seed in there with Carol Burnett and the comedy that you watched and just that family dynamic that brought a really good feeling. But it didn't just happen, did it? How did this transpire when you go from nursing and a pediatric nurse to now comedian? How did that happen?
Oh, it happened so by accident. It's not even funny. I really did even listen to some tapes, Bill Cosby and Lily Tomlin, and some comedy tapes when I was in grade school. Oh yeah, right. And then Edith Sayed, and all the different characters. I love doing the voices, and I was doing plays by that time, and I did do a lot of musical theater, and just that was part of my life. So I was never really afraid of getting up on stage. Gave my class speech in 7th grade, gave it in my nursing class, gave the class speech, but. So I have no fear of the stage and being in public, but I had been suffering with fibromyalgia. I was diagnosed when my kids were about 1 and 3, and I was just tired all the time, and I hurt, and I was just really in kind of a low place in my life because I had no energy. And what young mom doesn't need energy to keep up with these 2 boys that were like crazy? And so I had a friend that gave me a tape of like a VHS tape of clean comedy. And I listened to it, and I just loved to watch it because it made me laugh. And the truth was, when I laughed, I felt better. And I slept better, and my mood lightened, and my boys really loved to see me laugh, because kids don't like to see their mom suffer. That was hard for them. And I tried to not let them see it, but boy, they laughed at it too. And I don't know if they were laughing because I was laughing or because they really understood it. I'd like to think they were that smart, but I don't know. But
the adage, Sally, if mama ain't happy, nobody happy. So
there you go.
It is true too.
Yeah, and we would laugh, and it was one tape. That's all I had, one VHS tape, and I would watch it over and over. It just made me laugh.
For all you millennials, a VHS tape, it's dinosaur, but we used to have those.
And then you had to rewind it. Remember, it would take a while. Be kind, rewind. You have to take it back, rewound. But
you know what they're saying right now, listening to this? They're like, okay, boomer.
Exactly. Although, oddly enough, one of my 30-year-old would like a turntable for Christmas. Okay.
I know, they're coming back. Yeah. Sorry, I digressed. So
no, it's okay.
So loving because they could see you enjoying life.
So I'm laughing. I watched this, and I thought, okay, so my church was doing a chili comedy night, and it was a traditional thing. I'd never signed up to do anything in it, and I was working at the pediatric office that evening, and I